with some of the music at that time, as there is today. And the Heritage Singers were quite the group at the time. And I heard all this, ruckus about they had an electric bass player. And I thought, wow, that puts some rhythm to it. But I was in my 20s, not so today, but I still like a little life to something. Unless you're singing a cappella, you have rhythm. And in order to get that, there's a rhythm guitar and or a bass guitar and or percussion. That's the drums. And that's what I played, and no matter what, it's still there. So let's start with prayer. Eternal Father in heaven, we just praise you and thank you for this day. We are spokes in your mighty wheel. There's nothing special about us, but you were born, lived the life, sacrificed your life in torment, in torture, and the most cruel of deaths. When you were murdered, you were resurrected and went to heaven for us. And soon you will return for each and every one. In the name and in the glory of God, amen. No electronics today. And it's just, biblically, it would be like you and me. Proper English is you and I. But biblical language was way before English, so. I have a sense of humor, dry and warped. I am. I'm getting sarcastic in older age. Some say I'm old. Some say I'm getting old. I say I'm getting old. Everybody else says I'm old. And, yeah, I don't care. Call me what you want. Call me what you want. I've been around the block more than once or twice. I worked, well, it doesn't matter where I worked and who I was. It's who I am. It's who I am. And I'm learning to love others, hopefully like God loves me. I'm not a weaver, not the name, but the style of communication, where you weave into things what you want to know or what you want to convey. And that style really isn't me. I'm just kind of more abstract, off the cuff, don't rehearse. Tried that thing with Billy Graham going out in the woods, speaking to the squirrels and the rabbits. Even they ran away. But all kidding aside, I'm going to do the best that I can do. I am a spoke in God's wheel. I never wanted to be an elder. However, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a pastor. And at that time, outside of Loma Linda, when I got done with several months and months of study, I'm not easily to be persuaded. Show me, I'm from Missouri. I want some, I want some stuff. Show me, I don't go by what I hear. And at that time, assistant pastor, I don't know if he's still alive, but if he is, he'll never watch this, but Chuck Simpson took me to the side and he said, wife, 2 kids, 1 on the way. Yeah, chances you being a pastor with the hardships you're going to face, probably not going to make it, and you would lose interest. And he softened up more than that, but straight shooting, that was it. So I said, okay, well, I'll just go back to being a mechanic. That's what I'm doing. Heavy equipment mechanic. And with that came all the joys of manhood, so to speak. But anyway, speakers are never supposed to ask for the congregation or for their group to raise their hands. I guess that's not a good thing to do. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. So I'd like you to raise your hands. One of my kids told me, he says, when you're speaking, you talk like you're in a classroom. But I'm not a teacher. And so when a lot of people sit in church, they just sit there and bobble, or, like those little things you put in the car, bobblehead. They just go along with whatever's being said, and okay. And I'm just not that way. And I like a little interaction. If I ask you, it's okay to speak out. If you want to cuss me out, do it after the sermon. So, in the meantime, I'm a straight shooter. I'm not politically correct. I'm a hybrid, so you can call me a hybrid Bob. You can call me pretty much anything you want, within reason. But one of the things I'd like you to raise your hand on is everybody's into this fact checking. So does anybody here fact check? Okay, left or right? Let's do this scientifically. Okay, no, not really. So John? Who's your favorite fact checker?
My favorite fact checker?
Yeah, who do you use to fact check?
I check sometimes online, in the Bible. Check. Say you're preaching and you say something, it catches me. I then go back and check, make sure that's right. I'll check into the Bible and so on, history, if it's a historical thing you say.
Okay.
And I could use, like I said, you could go on Google, check it there, but a lot of times I go into my.
I rarely get anything that I'm after online that's real accurate, but that's why the little test here. So let's go to this side. Who do you guys use?
I don't use one, I use multiple. You gotta confirm it's more than one source.
I usually I'll search the internet and I'll go with multiple sources. My favorite one uses Snopes because they list.
What is it?
It's called Snopes.
Snoops?
S-N-O-P-E-S.
Oh, Snopes.
Because they list their sources at the end, so then I can check their sources as well.
I kind of take it a step further. I see who owns that fact checker. And the reason I do that, because everything is so influential now, politically, and most of it is without God. And that's as plain as I can make it, but I am what I am. So I'd like to read something here, and for you fact checkers, can you hear me? I'm using a lapel mic. Are we good?
Yeah.
That's just too much hardware on what's on my head. So for beginners, let's go back to Psalm 69. And we're going to start quickly. I have a song to make up for here. Psalm 69, 16 to 21. Hear me, O Lord, for your loving kindness is good. Turn to me according to the multitude of your tender mercies, and do not hide your face from your servant, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw near to my soul and redeem it. Deliver me because of mine enemies. You know my reproach, my shame, and my dishonor. My adversaries are all before you. Reproach has broken my heart. I am full of heaviness. I looked for someone to take pity, but there was none, and for comforters, but found none. They also gave me gall for my food, and for my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. That's not just in Psalms. Isn't that what they did to Christ? What did they give to him to eat and drink? So why are we any different? Do you think if you follow Christ, you're going to have this special aurora around you, this form of protection? You won't get disease. You won't have problems. Problems might just be starting. But endurance. For a starter, the original AI, what do you think it was? AI. Artificial intelligence. How about adultery and idolatry? The original AI. Think back in time, even before Babylon. What was going on? What was going on with all 12 tribes? And what was their fall? And where are we at today? You know, adultery is considered just to be sexual. You can define that yourselves. Everything I'm going to throw out, you can look up, you can fact check. And I encourage you, always, always question. Don't just follow the science. Look where that got us. That same mentality is going on today. Well, so-and-so said that, and that's scientific. Is it? Show me. Show me. So the spiritual adultery, how does that relate to us? When you're committed to one and you break that promise, when you break God's heart, there's other meanings than just the sexual connotations. It's spiritual. Can be spiritual. Oh, we don't do that in church. I can't tell you how many times I found out after the fact that kids were abused sexually in our own churches and other churches. About other people fooling around. Yeah. Happens. You know why? We're sinners. We are sinners. We might puff up, walk around like a rooster in a hen house. We're no different. We're sinners. But we need to recognize our sin and ask God to forgive us and move on. Don't hang on to the anger or the hatred or the frustrations that someone in church has really got to you. I could tell you stories, lots of stories. How about idolatry? You know, if you change the spelling on that, put a blank in between the A and the L, it says idol, try. Try. Just try. How about American Idol? You know, we got all this junk on TV. I mean, it's just pure junk. When you look at the core of humanity, it's kind of scary. Because even though someone walks around, oh, I'm not him, I'm not like him. Yeah, you're no different. You put your pants on the same way I do. You got the same problems I do, if not more. But we need to come to terms and recognize who we are. You may think you're better than somebody. Your sin is no greater than mine, and mine is big. My sin is big. You know why? Because stealing a cookie is the same thing as stealing $1 million. It's theft. Pure and simple. You know, I wrestled with my parents for a long time. What's number 5 for commandments? Honor your father and mother. Boy, did I really struggled with that for a long time. Give it up. Give it up, big boy. How about righteous indignation? What is that?
Christ did it.
Justified anger. That's God's justified anger. Is he justified in being angry with me because I broke his heart? Well, how could you do that? I pay my taxes, I go to church, I do all the right things. Really? What if I thought something and didn't let it go? What if I had embedded in my heart something that didn't belong there? It doesn't matter what it is. I don't want anything to keep me from the cross. I don't want anything to keep me from Christ. No one can steal my salvation, but I can sure give it up. I can walk the other way. And if I don't recognize when I'm doing that, looking in the mirror won't do any good. Because all you're going to see is, oh, that's just me. Ooh, aren't I nice? No, not at all. Off script, what's going on in politics right now is just revolting. I'm not going to go anywhere with that. Look it up. Absolutely revolting. They're cannibalizing each other. For what? It's not because of love of country. It's not because of love for you. It's all about self. Excuse me. You know, we can be so anxious at times because we're always right. We can be so anxious, so anxious that we are so very wrong. And I mean, big time wrong. How do we cover that? Self-justification. You know, the faiths in our churches, the cults, and the sects, SECS, can be skewed and totally crass, confused, misguided. You know, not all the churches are in their purest form today. Have they ever been? Even in the beginning, were they? How about temple prostitutes? Anybody ever see that? Not today. But temple prostitutes were used in certain religions in the past. I don't know if it was before or after biblical times. I didn't go into the research of it. But I just don't understand that at all. First of all, no thanks. But we have to make up our minds in searching for the truth. History can be like a rabbit hole, but I question it. I question everything and everybody. I don't go along with all that stuff. Who are you? Well, who am I? You know, John told me one time, he says, yeah, I know you're going to go home and look this up, you know, and I probably would if I remembered it. No, I'm kidding. I would. But I just make notes. I don't try to interrupt when somebody's speaking, but I make notes, go home, and I look it up, whether it's Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever. I look things up, I pray about it, and move forward. You know, Psalms 35, you can reference this and read it on your own. Psalms 35 talks about fight. About fight. 1 Samuel talks about fighting. There's a time to stand up. There's a time to shut up, and I'm really poor at that sometimes. But there's a time to stand up, and there's a time to fight for what you believe in, to keep what you have. You can't just be somebody's rug. You can't be a pacifist. Now, for me, being a minority in personalities, yeah, that's tough to do. I don't have a lot of cleric in me. That's mostly learned behavior that I didn't get until I had kids. Well, I didn't have them, but I helped create them. And I helped raise them. And they have a moral compass. And what they do after that age of accountability, yes, sir.
You said ask questions. Is there a time to fight?
Yes,
As
there
a
is.
Christian,
Yes, there is.
when?
When? Well, it depends what you're fighting for. Are you fighting for your salvation? Are you fighting for your loved one's salvation?
So it's good to fight for your family if they're in need.
Absolutely. In my opinion, I want to tell you straight up, this sermon is partly my opinion. Straight up. Part of it is reference. Part of it is reference scripturally. And I want to say this, I should have done it in the beginning. I'd like to dedicate this sermon, and I haven't spoke here. I haven't been on this platform to speak in about a year. Last month or this. But I would like to dedicate this sermon to Jesus Christ. And I would like to pray for everyone. Not just in this church, not just God's followers, but even in the leadership of this country. This seems to be so corrupt, there's no end to it. It's revolting and disgusting. But I have to pray for them because I know what's coming. So what is the truth? Is that factually based? Whose facts? This side, that side, my side? 1 Samuel 1 Samuel 8, 6 and 7 says, the rejection of God over a king as a leader of the people. People just had to have, who for a king? Wasn't it Saul? They had to have Saul, but they rejected God. Made no sense. That they had to have leadership. There's nothing wrong with having leadership. Correct leadership. And I think sometimes we lose our way. I think sometimes we become misguided. And sometimes by choice. Psalms 34. I didn't plan on this, but Psalm 34. If I can find it. Huh? Psalm 34, 17 to 22, and I'm going to read that. Psalm 34, 17 to 22. The righteous cry out, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and save such as have a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He guards all his bones. Not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked. Evil will slay the wicked. And those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who trust in him shall be condemned. Now, who's condemning? Everybody condemns you as a Christian. You put the biggest target on you when you said, praise God, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. You just signed your own death warrant, figuratively speaking, and possibly someday. But God says he will not condemn you. That's my interpretation. And none of those who trust in him shall be condemned. Well, who's the one that condemns you the most? You can take my body, but you cannot take my soul. My heart can stop. You can stop it. You can put a bullet in it. You can drown me. You can hang me. You can't take my salvation. I have to give it up. Are you going to fight for your salvation? Are you going to fight for your family? Parents really can connect to this. How much sleep have you lost raising kids? And at what point do we say, yeah, all done, walk away? You never walk away. You're continually praying. We can all make excuses, but the fact is we're accountable. You know, if you slam your hand on a door like a 62 Chrysler made out of bulk steel, you can tell what an owie that can be. What does pain do? Jacks you up. Pardon? Oh, yeah, it wakes you up, but pain is, what comes out of pain immediately is anger. Whether it's a mouse trap, rat trap, 62 Chrysler, man, I'll tell you, I had so many broken bones, cuts, and bruises as a mechanic. Wasn't funny. And lots more to go with that. It's personal, so it's not going on live stream. We've become somewhat disconnected and sanitized as society, even our churches, even our funerals. Look back at history. Can you remember? Well, I can't, but I saw movies. I've heard stories where funerals were done in people's homes, in their living rooms. And what happened to that? What happened to that? Well, I don't want to be in this house and remember my dead loved one, and I can't sleep, and so there's some comfort in having a funeral at a church or at a funeral home or underneath the apple tree or wherever you'd like. But we have become so sanitized that now we're moving away from, in my opinion, into the snowflake era. We don't even want to go to church and have an open casket. We don't want to do a viewing. We just want to cremate the person, go down to the local bar or church and show a video of the guy and how great it was and have another potluck. And 20 minutes later or an hour later, it's all done. 2 days or a week later, people are back where they were and just nothing but a memory. That spark of life that gives us who we are, that spark of life comes from God. So let's remember the spark of life that's in that person and what they really were and who they really are. Yeah, I think we become a social experiment, just like this country's government. It's an experiment. You know, socialist, I'm really hot on this subject, but I'm not going to get into politics. Socialist, even in churches, I get this magazine that says, Christ was a social justice warrior. Really? Really? That just stinks of politics right there. I mean, I don't have to hold my nose and swallow that because I'm not going to. I refuse. So yeah, there's a time to stand up and a time to shut up, and there's a time to fight. Socialism used to be the bridge between capitalism and communism. Right now in the current climate, show me the difference. Show me that socialism is really the bridge between capitalism and communism. I think somebody burned that bridge. I'll probably hear about this because I mentioned something. Well, you'd be wrong because you can say things even from the pulpit, as long as you're not endorsing or condemning a bill or an election or the people that are running for that election. So look it up before you jump on me. You know, things have moved so far left that there's really no reservation about using unpleasant tactics. Not just unchristian, I mean unsavory, uncool, unpleasant tactics. So leadership needs to be very careful not to lead or mislead in the wrong direction. And to remember that spiritual adultery and spiritual idolatry can be just as much alive in a Seventh-day Adventist church or any other church. And let's remember not to put the church before Christ, because Christ is our church and our shepherd. We can do so much running around here thinking we're doing great works. Are we committing idolatry by replacing Christ with the church itself? I say let's be careful. The facts are supposed to be the truth, yet they are skewed, and facts that you change, when you change the facts, you've changed the truth. Whose truth? Yours, mine, his, hers. What is the truth? In common today, it's so disgusting how things get moved around. And what's worse is how many people follow them. It's like little puppy dogs or lambs. What happened? What happened to society as a whole? Well, you're living in the past. You're old. It's time for you to get out of the way. Make new for this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, come and take it. Religion and politics sometimes are one and the same. Now, some philosophers try to inject themselves into society by means of either religion or politics or both for personal gain. Let's not joke around here. Everybody does something for their own good. It's to sell you something. Turn on the TV. They just try to use that magnet, that electronic pacifier, to suck you in because you're going to see something, you might pick up the phone and order something to sell you. Personal gain. Typically, that would be influencing. That would be money. That would be power, which money leads to power. Or something that's perceived. Me, I question it. Is it perception? Or is it real? Karl Marx. Anybody remember that name? Anybody old enough? Karl Marx was a German-born philosopher. That's not what he's known for. What's he known for? Communist Manifesto. But why is his name over the other guy that helped him write it? Friedrich Engels. You don't hear about that. It's always Karl Marx, the father of communism. Well, what happened to Engels? Fact check it. So a lot of the influencers for their day weren't really influencers for the good. They were trying to sell something to put them in power, something to put you in their mind. And some of those things with some of these people are still in current medical teachings. You know, Sigmund Freud was an Austrian-born neurologist and founder of psychoanalysis. Now, I'm going to give you some dates if you want to fact check these. That'd be great. If not, yeah. But Karl Marx was born in 1818 and he died in 1883. Now, if you correlate all these people I'm going to tell you about along with their dates, you can pretty much come up with a war or something really big happened. And it made them think. It made them think. And that helps make us think. And sometimes it was for the good, and sometimes no, not so. So, German-born philosopher Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883. Anybody remember any of those dates? Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939. 30s were pretty turbulent. So was the beginning of the 1900s. And right now, so is my fingers. Freud and had many theories. One of them are kind of repulsive. Some of the stuff I couldn't even get through to read. One of them was the 5 psychosexual stages, and a number of his theories made their way into modern medicine. Yeah, some of the stuff is still being used, and some of it was a departure of his own followers. Even his own followers said, yeah, that's far enough. We'll find something else. I have a better idea. Here are some of the names you may have heard of. Soren Kierkegaard. He was a Danish philosopher, 1813 to 1855. He claimed to be the father of pronounce that. Existential. Thank you. Can't talk, can't hear. Yeah, but by some not so fast. He was not the father of it. And there was people before him in previous times and previous eras that had brought those things into light and made connections. Some say that this gentleman, as good as he was, had blended some of his philosophies with Eastern philosophies, and he had blended those into his own. Is that true? Fact check it. And be careful of your fact checkers. Carl Jung, Swiss-born psychologist, 1875 to 1961. He had a good stretch. He was a personal friend of Sigmund Freud. By the way, they met at a hospital, I think, in Switzerland, and struck up a friendship. And going back to Sigmund Freud said that he wanted to expand his market to sell his ideas. And Sigmund Freud was Jewish, and he had a small market. The Jews at that time were not popular. So he brought in someone that professed to be a Christian. Though not practicing, he came from a Christian family. So expanding his ideas to sell, Sigmund Freud brought in Carl Jung. Now, the reason I put some of these up is when I was in college, I had studied human development, and that one particular book had a card in it from Loma Linda, and it was to do Bible studies or have a Bible study, and that is how I got here. A book from Loma Linda, or a book, I don't know how to say it, promoted by Loma Linda and putting their card in it for Bible studies at a public college, and I wound up here. Yeah, that was kind of a good book. So was the class. But anyway, getting back to the book, it was great. There was other things that I studied. One of the names that kind of popped was, excuse me, Abraham Maslow. Ever hear of Maslow's theory, the hierarchy of needs? It's pretty interesting, and it does touch on a lot of things that is current. Why we are, who we are, or why we think, the stages in our own life, and why. Yeah, they made sense. But his name popped up because he had been mentored by Alfred Adler. Anybody know that name? I didn't. Let me read you something. I'm running out of time here. I gotta hurry up. But I'd like to read you something. Bear with me. I didn't have time to change the sermon again. I ran out of time at home. Now I read this from Good Therapy. There's a lot of sites out there. But his personal life, he was born in Austria to Hungarian parents. But alongside Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, Adler helped to pioneer depth psychology. Now, he is the one that promoted and mentored the other gentleman I was just talking about. And that was Abraham Maslow. And Abraham Maslow, as soon as I find him, was personally mentored by Alfred Adler, who was connected to Sigmund Freud. You see all the dots and these circles, inner circles, they're somewhat, at least in part, connected. And if you connect this thought, this mindset, this somewhat man's way of looking at things to help man, but for the most part, even though somebody said they were Christian, it was godless. It was completely godless, in my opinion. And I've been known to be wrong, and so you can fact check it. And so connecting all of these, I thought, well, what about those eras they were men of their time, just like we are. And there's only two gens, men and women. So that's that. The American Revolution was 1775 to 1783. French Revolution, 1787 to 1789, or depending on how you're fact checking, it could be 1789 to the 1790s. How general is that? The American Civil War was 1861 to 1865. World War I was 1914 to 1918. World War II was 1941 to 1945. And I'm kind of personally connected to that because my dad was there. In fact, he was in the Bay of Tokyo when the Japanese emperor surrendered on the mighty Mo at USS Missouri. And so with the connection of those dates, if you compare them to the dates and eras, doesn't have to be exactly, I can hear it now. Well, you said 1945 and it was, 1946. Okay, split hairs. I'm talking about eras, a time frame, a think period, a time when man was thinking outside the box, that box being the Bible. They were expanding their minds. They're also trying to impress or sell something. Excuse me. Now, the dates of these wars, right? The dates of these wars, comparing it, comparatively speaking, how horrible is war? How many people died in the Civil War that were from disease? Were the thousands and thousands that died in prison camps? Imagine that. No food, they're eating rats, they're dying of disease. So the dates of these wars, the horrific and reality of war, helped and allowed mankind to think and rethink life. But none of these people had anything to say about the eternity that we faced or could face. So who's the father of war? Who's the father of confusion, of pain, of grief? How about suffering? Anybody here ever suffer physically? Anybody besides me and John? Joe? Come on, give me a break. Yeah, we all are suffering. We all suffer. Many of these times and eras, circles, and overlapped areas. Sorry, I gotta go. Overlap the chain of thought, a chain of confusion. But this, what was the benefit? We do have benefits from those people and what they brought. In my opinion, after each war, there's been a major shift in society. After each era came a self-proclaimed whoever with their followers. So go back to the original AI being adultery and idolatry, and I'm talking about not just in the physical, but in your heart, in your spirit. And God's righteous indignation is coming, and it is coming soon. There's no date for me because I may not be here tomorrow, but when I wake up, I will face God, his judgment. So, will we follow Jesus? Do we ask for his Holy Spirit, continually listen to mankind and be disrupted and confused? I'm going to skip over a section. Time is up. But like an original Griswold, if you don't know what a Griswold is, you can fact check it. So, like a Griswold, man is made well. You can be seasoned like a Griswold. But if you take care of it, it'll last a long time. And if you follow the wrong instruction, that'd be man's. So don't listen to me. Fact check it. But I strongly recommend you always fact check Scripture first. Because the wrong instruction may mean that you lose your eternity because you are confused, misguided, and may unknowingly surrender your own salvation. Well, I'm not your Griswold. I'm not. I'm me. I'm made the way I am. And God made me. So I belong to Jesus Christ, and he made me. He's tried me in the fire. He has seasoned me, strengthened me. And he paid for me with his life and his death and his resurrection. And Jesus Christ is coming back. And with that, we will close and have our